Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD Relationship Psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD Trauma Transformational Tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk to you about the question that a lot of my private PMDD clients really begin to ask me as we're doing the work, and that is, do I have PTSD from my PMDD? So many times there have been so many traumatic events that have happened specifically in PMDD rage that we begin to think that we've developed a sense of PTSD from all of the horrible things that have happened when we're in PMDD. We begin to question why I have this apprehension towards being with my partner, why I have this fear towards being around my partner, towards putting myself in situations that are similar to what has happened before, and what really is this about? And today I'm going to give you 10 signs to let you know if you have PTSD from PMDD. And I want to let you know that this has happened to me so many times, specifically when I've been deep in PMDD rage and I've done some things that are just completely below the belt. I mean, full out crazy things. And I put myself in these situations, and then later on, I'm still thinking about them again and again and again. And I begin to realize the situation has happened. The situation is over. PMDD rage is gone. PMDD is gone, but I'm still having all of these intense emotions. And that's when I realized that I had PTSD from the things that have happened during PMDD. So PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is found in people that have had a significant traumatic event in the past and they suffered through it. This can range from when you're in PMDD rage. This can range from a big argument. This can range from a big blowout that you've had, comments that were said, something that has really stuck with you, a traumatic event. And traumatic events happen with us through different ways based off of our prior experience. So if your partner has triggered you based off of something that you dealt with that's traumatic in the past, and then now that you're in PMDD, it's happened all over again, you could be having PTSD from PMDD. And there's a long process with dealing with PTSD, which is why if you just try to get over a PMDD fight and you're wondering why, oh, I'm just trying to get over this fight so we can move on, but you're just not able to let it go, it's because you might have PTSD from things that have happened when you're in PMDD. And it is a serious, serious disorder. These are things that happen for individuals who have been into combat, who people have been into natural disasters where there's this really intense event that happens and it replays in their mind and they're re-experiencing all the emotions from that. And so over the course of a lifetime, the odds of an individual suffering from PTSD are roughly 1 in 12. So if you think about the fact that half of our lives is basically spent in PMDD, we're doubling the likelihood that we're going to have PTSD, because the odds of suffering from PTSD is 1 in 12 for individuals who don't have PMDD, who don't have all of these symptoms on a monthly basis. So PTSD is common in the 1 in 12, but it's even more common in individuals who have PMDD. And so it is a psychiatric condition that does have an official diagnosis, but I want to just give you an outline of what that can look like specifically for PMDD. So for all of you that know, I'm getting my doctorate in PMDD studies, but my actual title for my doctorate is a Doctorate of Traumatology. So it's based off of trauma and PMDD. Again, I said this in my previous podcast before, PMDD does not cause trauma. It doesn't create it. Meaning if there's no pre-existing trauma, if you are able to go through the symptoms, it's not a guarantee that if you have PMDD, that you have trauma. But there are traumatic events that are encompassed within having PMDD. And so this is what we're going to deal with. We're going to really go deep and figure out if you identify with any of these as I'm talking about them, then it's a good possibility that you have PTSD from your PMDD. And the first sign is that you have overly intense negative feelings associated with a past traumatic event that has happened when you're in PMDD. So it's natural that you think about a past fight or an argument that you've had with your partner and you're just like, oh, that was an uncomfortable, event. But when you're reliving that fight in your mind, when you're reliving that argument in your mind, we're talking about something completely different with PTSD because the negative feelings that are associated with that memory are very intense. This is the type of fear and discomfort that can alter your day-to-day life, meaning you can't function, or it is hard for you to function, or it is a intense disruption for you to function while you're thinking about a past argument or fight or conversation that you've had in PMDD. If your body is starting to react differently because you are thinking about something that happened with PMDD, you're thinking about a past argument, you're thinking about a past fight, and it's causing you to feel differently, like in a sense of your functioning, then it is a big indicator that you have PTSD from what happened when you were in PMDD. Number 2, if you're having nightmares about the traumatic event that happened when you're in PMDD, this has happened to me so many times before where I've had really intense arguments with my partner and I start to have nightmares about it because it's so deeply rooted in my mind. And it really causes me to have this deep fear that it literally comes in my dreams. Like I'm literally dreaming about it. So recurring nightmares are common with those who have PTSD. And most often the nightmares are about the traumatic event. They're about the argument. They're about the fight. They're about the things that were said and done when you were in PMDD rage, or even your partner's response to what happened to you when you were in PMDD and you went off on PMDD rage. But the content of the dream can sometimes be unrelated to the original subject matter. So meaning you may be thinking about a traumatic argument or fight that you've had with your PMDD partner, and it can trigger something that happened to you before in your childhood. So a lot of times when we get into PMDD, childhood trauma comes up. I know it does for me every single month. That's something that I have to fight with. And that is when PMDD comes around, I have PTSD from my childhood trauma. So if I start to have an argument or I go off on PMDD rage with my partner, it ignites the PTSD that I already have from my childhood trauma. So it mixes all together. So it is a possibility that your PMDD partner can be doing something that ignites a pre-existing PTSD moment that you've had in the past. So even if you haven't had a traumatic moment with your specific PMDD partner, your PMDD partner can trigger something that's happened to you in the past, and it make it feel like your partner is the cause of your PTSD, or your relationship is the cause of your PTSD. I know that happened to me with my partner where he was exhibiting a lot of the characteristics of my adopted father, who I had all of my traumatic events with. And so because what he was doing was related to my PTSD and the traumatic event that I experienced in the past, I began to think that he was the cause of my PTSD. I have PTSD because of our relationship, and it had nothing to do with what had happened between us, but it was that he was mirroring a previous PTSD event that had happened for me in the past. And so I kind of lumped it all together. So that's why I think it's very important that when you're making these distinctions of, is my relationship a part of the PTSD that I'm feeling, that we really dig deep and figure out, is this your partner? Is this your relationship? Or is this something that you have pre-existing that's happened to you in the past, and your partner and your relationship are just bringing it out? Because that is a very common thing to happen, is that your partner's just triggering something that's already there versus creating something that was never there. So the third symptom is difficulty creating or maintaining a healthy relationship. So relationships can be extremely challenging when it comes to PTSD, because PTSD sufferers tend to keep their struggles to themselves. If you're feeling like you're having these flashbacks or you're having these intense emotions, you may not be explaining them to your partner, right? You may not even be telling your partner that you're having them, but the pain is very obvious to your partner. And there's a disconnection from your partner because you're having these PTSD moments. So if you find yourself consistently isolating yourself when you're having these intense emotions or these flashbacks, this is a common sign that you have PTSD within PMDD, because if I know the times that I have really thought deeply about some of the arguments that I've had with my PMDD partner, I've not wanted to bring them up with my partner because I didn't want to have them kind of blame me, like, oh, you're bringing up something when everything's supposed to be over, right? Like, why are we still talking about this? I thought we were over this, or I thought we talked about this. And I didn't want to be the one that brought it up, but I was having these really intense emotions. And when I was in those moments, I was very disconnected from my partner, meaning I couldn't get close to them because I felt like they were the cause of these PTSD feelings. And so I kind of just tried to shelter myself from my partner. Even when I was in their presence, I would shut down. I would become even more avoidant, and they could feel the shift even if I wasn't communicating to them what exactly was going on in my mind, with the way I was feeling, all of the things. So the fourth sign is that the flashbacks that you can have can feel like the event is happening all over again. I know that I have PTSD from my PMDD because most recently, when I had a big PMDD fight, was when my partner walked out, when he couldn't deal with me asking for space, because he really wanted to talk. He really wanted to connect. And I said I needed space. And he was in his anxious attachment style and I was in my avoidant, and he left. And every single time I think about him coming back home, because we're long distance, I have flashbacks of him walking out. So I'm having flashbacks of that event because it's very traumatic for me. And so when these flashbacks happen, it's like a dream that happens while I'm awake. I can literally envision that same event happening again and again and again. And it can be very vivid to me, and it can cause hallucinations. It can cause me to have the same emotions that I had before, which is a fear of abandonment, which is a feeling of being dismissed, which is a feeling of I don't matter. I get really insecure. Like, all of these emotions come to me when I think about him walking out on me, because it was very traumatic for me specifically, because I have neglect and abandonment in my pre-existing childhood trauma. So what he did when he walked out was he triggered something that was already inside of me. I already had PTSD from that. I'd already done the work and I thought I was over it. And then he did that one action and I fell right back into that hole. And so if you feel like you're having flashbacks, meaning you and your partner are getting into an argument and you're having flashbacks of previous things that were done and said, especially violent outbursts, right? Even if your partner's not being, violent at the time, or they're not yelling at the time, but they start to get annoyed and you automatically assume that they're going to take it to that place. that's a sign that you have PTSD from the PMDD, because you're assuming that the outburst that happened in the past when they were in PMDD rage is going to happen all over again. And this is for partners who don't suffer with PMDD. And this is for partners who suffer with PMDD, because a lot of times your partner's reaction to you being in PMDD can cause them to act differently. And the next thing you know, you're having fear that they're going to go back to that place, because it almost seems like when they're in that place of PMDD rage, or they're responding to PMDD rage, that they're unrecognizable. So it can cause that to be a traumatic event for you. And you can start to fear that it's going to happen and keep having flashbacks that every single time they get upset, like, oh, they're about to go off on PMDD rage and they're going to go back and they're going to say this and they're going to do this. Even if they've done the work with a lot of my private clients, they've done the work and they're not in that place anymore, but their PMDD partner assumes that they are, and it really makes them feel like they're about to react in the same way that they've done before. So the next sign is that you have persistent negative thoughts about your PMDD partner. I have been here so often where when I've had PTSD with my PMDD, I have had so many negative thoughts about every flaw that my PMDD partner has. I'm no longer seeing the good parts about my partner. I'm only seeing the bad parts about them that's magnified. Flaws about them, things, their shortcomings, things that they've said and done to me, and things that they've said and done specifically to offend me. And I began to picture them as only having those bad qualities. And it's made my partner, to me, seem very unattractive. I've not wanted to connect with my partner because I just see them in this negative light, because the negative thoughts about them just go swirling through my head. And I begin to think, why am I even in this relationship? Why am I with this person? Why am I in this relationship? I deserve better than this. Why would I be with someone who said this? Why would I be with someone who's done this? Why would I be with someone who can't do this for me? Why would I be like, I'm so convincing. When I have these PTSD moments because of things that have happened in PMDD, I'm so convincing. I've literally talked to friends and explained to them in great detail why I should not be with my PMDD partner, so much that they've almost come on my side and been like, yeah, well, that does make sense. Like, I have a way of painting my partner as this horrible person because I'm blocking out all of the amazing qualities about them, and I'm only thinking about the negative qualities that they've shown me when I've been in PMDD and they've reacted to it. So when I think about the ugliest negative qualities about my PMDD partner, it has specifically been when he's responding to me being in PMDD. And he seems so different to me. And it's almost like I would never consciously be with someone who's like this. But when I get into PMDD, I'm different. Right. And so often we fault our partners for changing and switching it up and acting out of character, but we're acting out of character when we get into PMDD, whether we realize it or not. So I know for me, I don't realize the extent. And I think my partner has said this to me so many times. He was like, I wish you could just see how you are when you're in PMDD. I wish you can just understand how horrible it is for me to just see you morph into this person that is so unrecognizable, that is so not loving, that is so isolated, that is so cold. And it just makes him cringe, and it makes him turn off his loving feelings for me because he doesn't feel the loving feelings from me. And so we're both in this place where we're both disconnected and we're both cold. And so while I can sit here and consistently think about these negative thoughts and get into this PTSD moment of like, he's this negative person, he could do the same thing for me. And I've said this to my clients so many times when they started to complain about their PMDD partners. And I said, listen, think about everything that you've done when you've been into PMDD. When you've been deep in PMDD and you're just in that moment, think of everything that you have said and done, the awful, the ugly things that you said and done. And think about the fact that your partner is still choosing to be in this relationship with you. I know that there are a couple of things that I have, on a couple of occasions where I have said and done things to my PMDD partner, and after I've come out of PMDD, I've looked back on it and been like, if he did that to me, I would be out. I would not be in this relationship. I would just cut my losses. I would be like, you know what? That's below the belt. Like, I can't be with someone who could treat me like that. And he chooses to love me. He chooses to be with me. He chooses to still stay in this relationship. And I don't think that we recognize the sacrifice in that, because a lot of things that us as PMDD sufferers, the things we say and do to our partners, it damages them to their core. And they may not express it to you. You may think, oh, they need to understand because we're in PMDD. They just need to understand because we're the ones suffering. But I am on calls with PMDD partners, the ones that are not suffering with PMDD, every single week. I am in my DMs talking to PMDD partners at least 2 hours out of the day, and they suffer so deeply, but it is a silent suffering. I'm beginning to understand it because the way they portray it to their partners is like, yeah, that was messed up. But when I talk to them and I really create that safe space for them, there are tears. There is deep pain. There are panic attacks. There's shaking. There's depression. There are suicidal ideations. There are so many things that they're suffering with. And we're just sitting there like, oh, well, you should just suck it up and understand because I'm the one that has the symptoms. And I want to let you all know, for the ones that suffer with PMDD, your partner has symptoms too. This is why I'm doing my doctorate in PMDD partnerships. And the focal point is on the PMDD partners who don't suffer with PMDD, as I'm explaining their side of the story, because I want their voice to be heard. I want their voice to be heard because this pain that I've seen is like nothing I've ever experienced before, because it's been bottled up for so long. So if you're wondering why your PMDD partner is like stoic, like, oh, they don't say much. They don't, like they just told me that it hurts or it's messed up, or they don't speak at all. When it comes out, it'll bring you to your knees, the amount of pain that they're going through. And I know that we have PMDD, and I know that it is horrible. I know I'm about to go into it in a couple of days, and I'm definitely not looking forward to it at all. But I don't want the pain of your partners to be minimized because we're suffering. And so the next sign that you have PTSD from the PMDD is that you have a lack of interest in normal activities. So if your partner used to go and be social, if you used to go and be social, and now all of a sudden, because you're suffering with the memories and the flashbacks of these events, you're just isolating yourself a lot more. And I've noticed I've been like this as I've gotten old. I used to think it was like, oh, I'm getting older, so I'm becoming more of an introvert. No, it's because my symptoms are increasing, and it's making me not want to be social like I used to be, because it takes so much out of me. Meaning the traumatic events that have happened in PMDD, when I'm taking time to recover from the things that have happened when I've been into PMDD, I'm taking time to recover, and that's taking so much out of me to where I don't want to be social. It doesn't feel good to me anymore. And that's a sad thing to think about, but it's very true. I just feel like I don't have the energy to do the things that I used to do because my symptoms are so horrible. And a lot of the times, the traumatic events that I'm talking about are when I've had really bad arguments with my PMDD partner. Those are the times where I'm just not social at all, like either for the whole month, like even when I come out of PMDD, because I've just exuded so much energy that I feel like I have nothing left. That if I do have good days, I just want to spend them to myself. I want to rest. I want to restore. And I'm not thinking about doing all of those social things that I used to love to do. I'm thinking about hibernating so I can recover from the last round of PMDD, knowing that I'm going to another round of PMDD. So the next sign that you have PTSD from your PMDD is if you are on high alert. So imagine that you're walking down a dark alley in like a bad part of town and it's late at night, you would be on high alert, right? That's a normal reaction. Or but if you're watching TV on the couch and your partner touches you and you jump, or something comes out, if your partner comes around the corner in the house and you're on high alert, or if your partner starts to say, hey, I don't like it when you do this. If your partner mentions something very little and you automatically assume it's going to turn into something big, which is this is like a sign that my partner has it, because he does this all the time where we're together and I can show a small sign of me being in PMDD and he freaks out as if I've gone off on PMDD rage. Like he gets so like, oh, we don't have to do this. And like he starts going off because he assumes that I'm about to go off and it's about to be a PMDD fight. And all I did was just make a comment, but he just assumes that it's going to go to the next level. And so he is constantly on high alert. I remember this specifically happened the last time when he walked out on me, was because when I picked him up from the airport, he was coming to visit for a couple of days and he got in the car and he was on high alert. Like he was looking at me almost like, if you ever seen your partner like looking at you, almost like they're looking to see if you're in PMDD or if there's a glimpse of PMDD there. They just want to see if you're normal or if you're in PMDD. And so they're really just like reaching for something. And when you show the least little sign of like it being a little bit irritated, they're on high alert and they kind of shut down whatever their coping mechanism for you being in PMDD. They immediately get into that mode, and it's because they have that hypervigilance of fearing that you're in PMDD, even if you haven't specifically done anything. It's almost like you have to be completely happy, completely normal, because if you show anything outside of that, they're like, PMDD is here, and they get on high alert. They put their guard up and they do whatever coping mechanism that they do. And so the next sign is you have guilt and shame. So if you have guilt and shame about things that have happened that you've said and done when you're in PMDD, and I'm pretty sure we all have this one, because we all have regrets about things that we've done and said when we were in PMDD and it's just below the belt. This is specifically a sign that you have PTSD because you're reliving the things you've done and said when you've been in PMDD, how you treated your partner. I've done this so many times. I do this almost every month when I get into my good days and I think about how awful I've treated my partner in the past. And I feel like a horrible person. I'm like, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I do that. Because when you're back in your loving place, you can't imagine talking to your partner like this or not talking to your partner like this. And I felt not myself. I believe to the core of who I am, I'm a good person. But when I get into PMDD, I can be selfish. And I think I've literally said this on every episode lately because I'm really just getting into the core of the different personas that I have, because everyone has a different persona when they get into PMDD. And I'm recognizing that there's a clear delineation of there's you and then there's you with PMDD. And me with PMDD is selfish. Selfish, selfish, selfish. Me without PMDD is very selfless. I'm very caring. I'm very nurturing. I'm very affectionate. I'm very, what can I do for you to make your life better? I'm very supportive. I'm telling you that you're amazing. I'm giving all of the love languages, the words of affirmations, the gifts, the quality times, the acts of service. I'm literally an overgiver when I'm not in PMDD. And when I get into PMDD, I'm an undergiver. Like you're getting the bare minimum for me because I'm in survival mode, and all of the effort that I would take to give you things, I'm trying to give it to myself because I'm trying to preserve myself because I'm trying to survive PMDD. So all my time is spent doing all these routines to like possibly help me feel better. And I don't even feel bad about it. I'm like, I'm trying to survive in PMDD, so I don't know what to tell you. Like, you need to figure it out. And as I do the work, I can see myself being that way, but I can't necessarily bring myself out of it. Like, I don't know if you've ever been that way where you know that you're saying things, you're doing things that are below the belt, but you can't necessarily stop yourself. You're like, man, this is messed up. I feel this way about my partner. And then you commence to continuously feeling that way about your partner. Like nothing's changing. You're just continuously being that way. And that's how it is when I get into PMDD. I'm like, listen, It's like, if you're a parent, you get older and you're like, listen, there's TV dinners in the freezer. Like, you're going to have to fend for yourself because I don't have the energy to like go cook a 5-course meal. The next sign that you have PTSD within PMDD is you have self-destructive behavior, meaning you're abusing drugs, you're abusing alcohol, you're doing self-harm, you're cutting yourself, you're having suicidal thoughts, and you're doing things to cause yourself pain to distract from the pain of the traumatic event of being in PMDD. And you're just reckless, right? You're reckless in your behavior. You're not thinking about your health. You're binge eating. You're doing things that are just completely unhealthy for you. You know it's not productive for you. You know it's not healthy. You know it's going to make you feel like crap, but you don't even care. You're overeating, you're over drinking, you're under exercising, you're using drugs like excessively, you're trying to medicate yourself with whatever you have to not feel PMDD. That's a sign that you have PTSD because you're literally trying to escape PMDD as a whole because you're trying to escape those negative feelings. So the last sign is that you have difficulty concentrating, brain fog. Brain fog is one of my biggest PMDD symptoms, but it's also a sign of PTSD because PMDD sufferers complain about, I can't focus, I can't concentrate. The reason why is because your brain is just so inundated with these traumatic events, and you recovering from them and you dealing with them and constantly thinking about them, that it's like your brain doesn't have the capacity for anything else. And this is the hardest for me with writing my dissertation, because when I get into this moment of difficulty concentrating and I have deadlines and things like that, or if you have a very stressful job, or if you're a mom and you have a lot of things to remember and you just can't seem to remember things, it's because your brain is on overload. So this means that you have PTSD from your PMDD. So what I want you to gather from all of these signs and symptoms is that PTSD is a serious psychiatric condition with the potential to have serious consequences on our quality of life. From having PMDD, our quality of life is already reduced because we have PMDD. And if we have PTSD along with PMDD, our quality of life is severely diminishing. It's going down, and it makes it challenging for work, for sleep, for your intimate relationship. And it can lead to having the suicidal ideations that so many PMDD partners have, because if you're having some of these symptoms that I talked about and they're in an intense manner, you're just looking for out. You're looking for a way for it to be over, because you're just like, I cannot continuously deal with this anymore. And I get it. I understand it. I have been there. I have been there where I feel like enough is enough. I can't deal with this anymore. I need help. And I want to let you know, if you need help, you need to contact someone specifically who knows about PMDD in conjunction with PTSD. This is why I'm opening up my private PMDD coaching sessions for you. Go to my website, www.inlovewithpmdd.com. My monthly sessions are now open. I can only take a small amount of clients right now. And I really, really mean that, because I still have clients that have continued on for my 2-month private PMDD coaching program, and that I'm also writing my dissertation. So I can only take a small amount of clients privately. So go to my website, get yourself a session, book them on a monthly basis, because if anything, you need to have someone where when these PTSD ideations come up, when these PTSD thoughts come up, when these PTSD feelings come up, that you can talk to someone who really understands. There's nothing more frustrating from being in this state of turmoil and talking to someone who doesn't know what you're talking about, because the time and energy that it takes for you to explain it just takes more out of you that you don't really have. And this is why I make my services available, because I understand everything that you're going through, because I've gone through it myself. I have literally gone through PTSD from my PMDD, and I have pre-existing PTSD. So I understand it all. I can literally, you explain your situation, I can let you know, hey, this is PTSD. This is, PTSD from your relationship. This is pre-existing PTSD, and this is what you can do about it. And we can begin to do the work to manage the PTSD, because I know for me and for my partner, when this PTSD comes up, it causes it causes big problems in our relationship, and it doesn't go anywhere. So PTSD is a permanent condition. So it's about managing it. That once you've experienced a traumatic event, there's no pill that you can take. There are things that you can do to manage it. But if you're not doing those things to manage it, it can spiral out of control to where you're doing things and saying things that are so out of character. And it's so damaging. And so if you need relief from that, go to my website, reach out to me. You can also reach out to me on Instagram at In Love with PMDD, so that we can book a session. We can talk about your specific PMDD relationship. We can even talk about your partner, because I know I have a lot of clients where I'm primarily working with their partner, and their partner has the PTSD, and you're trying to work on yourself, but you can't really progress because your partner is in that space where they're experiencing these symptoms and they're not able to move forward. And it's worth it. It's not just about us getting help. It's about your partner getting help too. And your partner getting help really involves them speaking to someone who understands what they're going through. And it's not going to tell them that they're crazy and they just need to suck it up and move forward. But it's actually talking to someone who has been through it. So me coaching my own partner who has gone through PTSD in the military, and then also gone through PTSD in our relationship because of my PMDD, I know both sides. This is why I can talk to your partner so that they understand, and I can talk to you so that you understand. But utilize my services. I am urging you to do that, because the longer that you wait, the months and months and months that pile on top of each other, where you're not getting help and just thinking maybe this month won't be so bad and we could just wing it. You don't want it to come to a point where you're just winging it so long and then one month your partner breaks, because we all have an elastic limit. I have an elastic limit. My partner has one, and he's literally told me that time when we were at the lake house, he was like, I'm broke. I'm broken. This broke me. And it was when I was in PMDD. And he literally said, this broke me. I thought I could fight it. And he was tears in his eyes. And this is a man that has gone to combat. So for all of my private clients and for all of you listening, I told you all, this is not oh, my partner just needs to suck it up and he just needs to deal with handling my PMDD better. No. This is people that have gone to combat, to war, who've seen people die bloody in their hands. And PMDD will take you to your knees. PMDD will break you. It will break you, and it will break your partner. It has no mercy. It's not oh, how many times have we said that when we've been in PMDD? I hope it goes easy on me this month. And then absolutely not. That does not happen. There's no mercy. So we need to utilize the tools that I have so that you can have the relationship that you desire and deserve. So if you've identified with me, I gave you 10 things, 10 signs. So if you identify with any of them, I'm expecting you to contact me so that we can get a hold on this. Because continuing on without getting the help is dangerous. Not just for you, it's dangerous for your partner, for the state of your relationship. If you have children, if you have pets, if you have a family, if you want to have a family, if you want to get married, all these things, all of that is laying on the line. So when you're risking it by winging it, you're putting all of that. It's kind of like you're putting all your chips on the table and you're just gambling with your future and saying, I hope that this works. Don't hope. Get help. Contact me. We got this. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.